reducing forest loss and degradation and the emission of greenhouse gas by strengthening capacity building, forest management, and enhancing conservation is one of our 4 objectives, which capacity building, information sharing, supporting regional policy dialogues and funding demonstration projects as 4 implementation tools. Since 2010, ADFNet has sponsored 10 demonstration projects covering more than 20 regional economies, and 5 of them are proper focused. The 4 site projects in Vietnam, Nepal, Cambodia, and Chinese Taipei, and 1 policy study project that involves 11 economies in Asia Pacific region are directly linked with the reduction of the forest degradation and the improvement of the quality of the forest ecosystem and livelihoods of forest dependent communities. At any phase of a project, from feasibility study, project preparation, development, to implementation, community people and stakeholders at local level are considered and involved to make sure actions made properly and tailored to people's needs. Their needs and concerns were listened. Workshops were organized to enhance their capacity to use forest resources more effectively and alternatively, and thus reduce carbon. Efforts were made to help them establish local forestry business and cooperatives to generate more income sources. Monitoring and assessment shows our delivery both welcome and appreciated. In addition, we organize regular training workshops with international organizations and regional institutions, aiming to have regional 40 to 50 forest officials annually, in particular from developing economies, to update and share views on how the policy and strategy making process would ensure first participation. In this regard, rural development and forestry has been set as one of our demand areas, where issues like forest tenure and participatory community forestry are discussed in depth. We hope through these efforts, policymakers and program planners will be influenced and inspired, and always take this aspect into consideration. The 3rd point, the outlook looking forward. ADFNet has scoped its way forward through its first strategic plan from 2011 to 2015. And the project and capacity building activities will definitely remain our pillars to directly benefit first. More specifically, training will be improved in terms of quantity and quality, and more activities will target people at local level. In terms of projects, ADFNet will more focus on development in the longer term, where more experiences could be accumulated and promoted in the region. We will always keep purpose in mind and look forward to concrete cooperation in this regard. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your very kind words, succinct words, and a very clear message. It's been quite, for me, it's been quite rewarding to see something, an organization such as ADFNet grow from a leader's declaration under APEC and to evolve into a really Pan-Asia Pacific operation. It has a very keen sense of experience to this dialogue. I'd like now to bring colleagues from my experience up to the podium. And you may be wondering what sort of order we're moving in here. For me, we have 5 speakers, just as we have 5 sections of an RPP. As we move from the higher level, we start moving in towards finance, we start moving into questions of co-benefits, and we start moving into questions of stakeholder issues, co-benefits. And so I think you'll see that pattern throughout this event, and I look forward to the words from your experience.
Thank you very much. It's a great privilege to have an opportunity to talk about this 4-year experience of the Pro Red project. I think I'd like to start out by thanking you all for coming, and also to thank those members of the IUCN teams working in the 5 countries who are here, not only for being here, but also for the efforts that they've made over the last 4 years to help us to understand, to help us to develop those 7 principles that Stuart outlined. I'm very impressed by this project. I got involved in RED in the middle of 2008 when I was asked in our technical advisory service to do an appraisal and assessment of the proposal from the IUCN. And that was at the time, in the run-up to COP15 in Copenhagen, when RED was very firmly emerging on the climate change agenda as a big opportunity. And it did seem like a slightly kind of diversionary tactic at the time to start working with the IUCN. But of course, we realised that the long experience of the Forest Conservation Programme meant that understanding the dynamics of forestry, and as Stuart said, the history of the challenges and difficulties of tropical forest management was something that the organisation and its members understands very well. I represent in this Danida, the Danish government. Sometimes I wish that I represented the Norwegian government. Other times I'm very glad I don't represent the Norwegian government. As you know, the discussion about RED readiness has been given enormous impetus by the large amounts of money that have been allocated by the Norwegian government to a variety of bilateral arrangements in countries like Brazil, with the Amazon Fund, Indonesia, with the moratorium and so on. And also the Norwegian effort to mobilise the multilateral system. And I sometimes feel that we're, from Denmark, very small partners in a large game which is being determined in Geneva and Washington, and not least in Oslo. Nonetheless, we're playing our part. We are also contributing to the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility and to the UN RED programme. So I think it's very important that we also, in their work on the readiness process, on setting up mechanisms for a longer term system of performance-based payments for reducing deforestation and degradation. And while the multilateral readiness effort and the negotiations and discussions that have gone on with a large number of countries to develop these so-called RPPs, the readiness preparation proposals or plans, or also changed name along the road. While those efforts are very, very important, there's also been a whole groundswell, and you already heard a little bit from the Asian region, a whole series of movements amongst NGOs and organisations of civil society around the world to understand the possibilities, the opportunities and the challenges. And in some way or other in Danida, we're trying to bring these threads together, to link with both the multilateral agencies where we have a seat and a say in steering committees and boards and policy boards and so on, but also to listen to what is coming out of experiences from the very wide range of organisations that are trying to work on this possibility, this opportunity that was presented by RED Plus. We also play an active role in the negotiations on the UNFCCC agreement on the procedures and the mechanism for a compliance market, compliance agreement on RED. We've also, and I think this was an important recognition, we also realised that readiness is only part of the story. There's also a question of a need for a massive upscaling in investment in forestry, much better attempts to ensure that forests are managed sustainably and to develop the capacities and abilities of organisations, both in civil society but also government agencies and services, to do a good job in managing tropical forests. And let's face it, the history, as Stuart mentioned, has not been very, very positive. And in that sense, we opted to put some money as well into the so-called Forest Investment Programme of the Climate Investment Fund, and a number of countries where Dunedin has been active in over the years, such as Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Indonesia. Those countries are of particular interest. I would just like to mention that as a representative of an aid agency, it's always interesting to see how fast we can spend our money. We've spent 25 million Danish crowns, it's about $5 million over 4 years on the Pro-Core RED project. The Forest Investment Programme has $600 million US in its, on its account at the moment. The Forest Investment Programme selected 8 pilot countries in 2010, a little over 2 years ago. And the procedures of mobilising funds through those development banks, the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, are complicated and slow. About a week ago, I got a statement of the disbursement of funds through the Forest Investment Programme. Only 1% of the 600 million available in the Forest Investment Programme has been dispersed so far. I have a couple of observations about where we've got to in the experience of the RED Plus in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think, again, I'm not going to say things which would be a surprise for most of you, since you're all very familiar with the discussions of the issue. I think what we have realised is that designing a readiness mechanism has turned out to be more complicated and more expensive. That it's not that easy to devise, to work out, to negotiate a large-scale payments mechanism to channel money to communities, to, as Stuart said, to help them to stop cutting down trees. It's also a very fundamental problem that we face in designing today is that there is an opportunity cost and very powerful drivers of deforestation in many countries. It's much more profitable in Indonesia at the moment to grow oil palm. It has been more profitable in other parts of the world to grow other crops, to clear the land and so on. In many countries, mining is a significant threat. Valuable mineral resources lead to rapid destruction of forest areas. So there are very powerful drivers of deforestation, you know that. It's very important, the process of getting the reference scenarios and the emissions calculations right, updating and improving on old and out-of-date forest inventories. And of course there is the critical issue of the payments mechanism, which I mentioned again in conclusion. What I would like to stress, I think, and it's part of our experience from Dunedin, we're a small group, 3 or 4 people. We don't have a large team like our Norwegian colleagues. There are 3 or 4 of us who try to follow these different grant allocations that we have given to the different partners. And we realised that we're in I think it was Francis Seymour from CIFOR who said that at the moment Red Plus is like a giant global laboratory. There's lots of money available to experiment, to test, to find out, to pilot, to do demonstration. And yes, there is, and we should maximise those opportunities. And through the Pro-Poor Red project, we've tried to maximise the opportunity of understanding what is happening to poor rural communities, to marginalised communities, to indigenous peoples and so on. And I think one of the conclusions that I would like to stress, which is also, I think, consistent with Danida's recent development, new statement of development policy, is that it's, at the moment, we're in this experimenting phase. What we need is consultation, more consultation, and more consultation. Multi-stakeholders, as the IUCN says, talking with the people, talking with the enterprises, talking with the agencies, the government foresters and so on, and working out what are the best mechanisms in different countries, and trying to resolve some of the really thorny issues, the really difficult problems of, for example, security of tenure, which I think has emerged very clearly in the 5 countries that we've worked in through the Pro-Poor Red. The problem of tenure security has clearly emerged as one of the fundamental issues that needs to be thought through. And then the tricky but also absolutely essential concern about how to arrive at equitable benefit sharing, to avoid elite capture, as was said in statements about Pro-Poor Red 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. It was interesting today to take part in the conservation campus session on RED and environmental law. What kind of laws do we need? What kind of legislation is necessary for improving benefit sharing? And I think that's again part of the experiment, part of the process of trying to understand where this initiative is going to lead us. If I had had more time, I would have given you a PowerPoint presentation about what's happened in Bolivia, an interesting case which Danida has also been involved in, a controversial and exciting example of the ups and downs of valuing nature and developing benefits, benefit sharing mechanisms and tenure security for indigenous people. But I think I'll leave that story for another day and conclude, like Stuart, by saying that I think that this is actually maybe at this stage we're reaching the end of the experimenting phase, and we need to have rather rapidly have some agreements, decisions about how to channel benefits, how to channel funds to communities in order to reduce deforestation and degradation. While we've been experimenting, climate change is experimenting with the planet, and we have quite serious challenges, as those of you who have followed the news of the rapid melting of the Arctic ice cap will realise. So it's a good step we made with Pro-Poor Red. We're beginning to get some ideas, and I think it's time to move into a much more concerted effort. From Danida, I hope we will be able, we have no decision as yet, but I hope we will be able to continue to work with the IUCN on consolidating the benefit sharing payments mechanism as an essential part of Pro-Poor Red. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's always a welcome, eye-opening sometimes. We speak about problems of disbursement, and I think we can speak about dispersing money more quickly and not necessarily effectively. And that doesn't mean that we need to have processes and checks and balances necessarily that slow down disbursement. What it does mean is that we need to get results on the ground. In that spirit, I think I won't use my words anymore. He introduced himself as the last leader in the political leaders dialogue, and I'd like to welcome His Excellency to the stage today somewhere.
Excusez-moi, je vais essayer de vous donner un texte d'abord pour